Hello, it's Mr. Bush here with Science Time. Basically, our topic of today is density. So, what is density? Long story short, it's basically the comparison of an object's mass to its volume. So if you look at the object over here on the right, basically the solid, all the mass is pushed really close together. So the mass is in a very compact or very small size. That's going to make it very dense. Now if you look there, the object in the middle has the same exact mass as the object on the right, but the particles are spread out a little bit more. It has a larger volume. That's going to make the object have a smaller density. And if you look to the object on the left, or the gas, it'll have the lowest density because the mass is spread out over a very large volume. Now, the method for calculating density is you simply use the formula of density is equal to mass divided by volume, which means to find the density, you just simply take the mass of an object, which is typically measured in grams, and divide it by the volume of the object, and that will give you the density. Let's go ahead and work this problem out together. So if Timmy has a block which is 30 grams and has a volume of 6 milliliters, what is the density? Well, you would simply put the 30 where the mass goes, and the 6 milliliters where the volume goes, and then calculate it out. And 30 divided by 6 would equal 5 grams per milliliter. That means every milliliter of that block weighs 5 grams. Now, the cool thing about this formula is you can actually rearrange it to solve for each variable inside of it. So you can also rearrange it to solve for mass, and you can rearrange it to solve for volume. So we're going to go ahead and look at those real quick. Alright, now if you look over here, you have the original formula of your density is equal to mass divided by volume. Now, once again, that's only going to be used when the question is asking for the density. However, some questions might ask you to solve for mass or for volume. For mass, you would use this formula right here. And basically, the mass of an object will be equal to the density times the volume. Once again, you only use that that formula, whenever you're solving for mass. Now, sometimes you'll need to solve for volume, and you'll use this equation. And that's basically going to state that volume will be equal to your mass divided by density. So you take whatever the mass is and divide it by the density, and that would give you the volume of that object. Once again, only used whenever the question is asking you to solve for volume. Alright, let's go ahead and transition away from the formula and look at one more thing regarding density. Alright, the last property of density we're looking at is basically called buoyancy. Now, if an object is more dense than a liquid, it'll sink in it. Example here, the bolt is more dense than all of those liquids, so it sank to the bottom. And you'll start to see certain objects will stop floating, will float on top of one liquid but sink through the next. So if you look here, the ping pong ball is basically less dense than any liquid in this column. And as you start to go down, like the bead was more dense than the vegetable oil, but less dense than water. So basically it would float on the water, but sink through the vegetable oil. I believe this is a cherry tomato. It was more dense than the water, but it was less dense than the milk, the dish soap. So you can kind of see that. It'll basically, here's basically to sum it up. It'll sink in the liquid if it's more dense, but it'll float on the liquid if it's less dense. Alright, well if y'all have any questions, feel free to swing by tomorrow and ask. Hopefully this helps y'all out. Y'all have a great day.